So, what are we looking at here? It's beautiful. It's obviously old. Is it a painting? A book? Of course, the answer is it's both, and you may already know what it is. It's an illuminated manuscript, a page from a book handwritten and painted hundreds of years ago in the Middle Ages, the time of knights in armor busy defending their castles from other knights and, we imagine, treasure hoarding dragons. And this page brings us right back to their time. These pages ask and answer the obvious question. So these dragon-slaying knights had books? Well, clearly some did. If they were wealthy enough and, of course, literate enough. Even by 1450, only about 10% of the people could read. And for the most part, reading meant reading in Latin, since few books were written in any other language. So few people had need of a personal library, even if they could afford one. Even in a well-off family, you might only find a single book. That book was almost always a personal prayer book. The medieval people called it a book of hours. Say we're a family living in the 1400s and we've decided to invest in a book of hours. We first have to choose if we want a ready-made or a custom book. If we are a family of relatively modest means, we might buy a simple ready-made book with few decorations. But even the most humble book was painstakingly handwritten. And even the paper was paid for dearly, since paper, as we know it, had not yet been invented. Rather, the books were written on animal skins, called parchment or vellum. So even our modest family will pay a high price for their simple book. And if our family is wealthier, we can choose a finer vellum, made from the soft skins of calves rather than the more ordinary vellum made from cows, sheep, goats, or even, God forbid, cats. If we look closely, we can sometimes see the hair follicles of the animals or the imperfections in the skin which result in holes. Then our family must decide how much we're willing to spend on decorations. And maybe we can even afford a book with numerous paintings called miniatures. And maybe we, like some wealthy patrons, can even commission a painting of ourselves in the book. I'm sure you've realized by now that when we look at a book of hours today, we can have a good sense of the economic status of its owner. Regardless of how elaborate the manuscript is, a part of the magic of these medieval books is imagining all of the hands that touch them. Perhaps we see a monk painstakingly writing out the text in his monastery. This is certainly true for many of our books, but by the 1400s, the heyday of the illuminated manuscript, a team of professionals worked on each book, including the people who prepared the animal skins, the scribes who wrote the text, the illuminators who painted the borders, and the master miniaturists who painted the magnificent Bible scenes. Unlike a mass-produced book of today, which is barely touched by anybody by the time we receive it on our doorstep, a book from the Middle Ages was handled page by numerous people, some of whom even shared their frustrations in the margins, including such complaints as, "Oh, my hand," or "The parchment is hairy," or "Now I've written the whole thing. For Christ's sake, give me a drink." Clearly, the work could be agonizing. And of course, we have the owner of the book. And if it were a typical owner, he or she used this book constantly, as the person was meant to read prayers from it up to 8 times a day during each of the set prayer times, or hours, thus the name, Book of Hours. For many families, the Book of Hours was also the primer for teaching children to read. The word primer, or first reading book, derives from the word prime, or the third canonical hour of the day, around 9 a.m., just in time for school. For a child of the Middle Ages, the Book of Hours was their version of Go Dog Go, or Dragons Love Tacos. So no matter which illuminated manuscript page you look at, one from a monk in a scriptoria, or from a modest family in Holland, or from a wealthy French aristocrat, you can't help but sense that there is a little bit of magic before you, making you feel like a time traveler, reaching across hundreds of years, connecting you to all those hands from a very different time that created and then helped preserve these beautiful pages for us to enjoy today.